most Americans already support a ban on factory farming. If we can just get factory farming ballot initiatives in all the states that allow them, at least people will have to grapple with the ethics of eating animals in a way that they haven't before.
Welcome to Our Hen House. This is Jasmin Singer.
This is Mariann Sullivan.
And our guest this week is Natalie Fulton. Welcome to Our Hen House, Natalie.
Yo, thanks for having me.
So excited. We've been talking about this for a while. We've kind of been like, not officially, but we've sort of been like, what would Natalie do over the last few weeks? Like a little bit, just in our conversations. Now that you're here, you could actually answer it. So that'll be fun. For folks who are not familiar, but probably most people are, Natalie is the media and content lead at Pro Animal Future, but maybe even more well known to you for her amazing social media content, particularly on YouTube, where she demonstrates how strategic digital storytelling can help build bridges and create meaningful change for animals. And she also manages to be pretty funny. So, Natalie, I don't even understand how all of those things happen. Like, Mariann and I have been doing, animal rights activism for so long. And we have found that the vegans who succeed on YouTube are basically making cupcakes. We'll get into that a lot because I want to know how you manage to engage people. But
making cupcakes, you mean we're mostly talking about food people?
Food, yes.
Gotcha. I was like, I've never made a cupcake.
No, I'm not really.
They're not talking about animals. They're talking about
Yeah.
Mariann's here to translate for me.
Not always.
Anyway, Natalie, you work for both Pro Animal, which is focused completely on systemic change, and your own videos, etc., which is all about vegan advocacy. So I assume that you've given quite a lot of thought to the hot button issue of the comparative value of working for individual versus systemic change. So can you share some thoughts on how that informs your advocacy?
Yeah, definitely. So I think to really answer that, we should go back to the day I went vegan, which was because I saw Earthling Ed and his street outreach. And then I signed up for veganbootcamp.org. And then I watched Dominion, and I knew I wanted to, do as much change as I could for animals as possible. And at the time, I was very convinced that outreach was the best thing to be doing, that we should be focusing on individuals and turning people vegan because, Earthling Ed worked on me and he's turned a bunch of people vegan. So that's what I did for probably the first 2 or 3 years of my advocacy career. I was just interviewing people on the streets and putting the videos onto YouTube and promoting veganism. And then I came across this study by an organization called Pax Fauna, which is Pro Animal Future's sister organization. And the study basically said that the personal consumer change was not landing with people at all because it puts them into the consumer frame, which is when you're at the grocery store, say you buy a can of beans instead of meat, and you think, oh my God, I'm the only one doing this. My family's making fun of me. My friends don't care. Like, why do I even bother? Is it even going to make a difference for animals, especially when there's billions of them being tortured? So a lot of people just can't get out of this futility mindset that what they do just isn't going to make a difference because 8 billion other people are not going to stop eating meat. So what Pax Fauna suggested doing instead was shifting to the civic frame. And this is where we think of ourselves as citizens and community members, and we can all come together to help evolve away from using animals for food. So that's the key messaging difference. And that's why we're pursuing ballot initiatives, because we're not asking anyone to change their diet or their lifestyle. We're just asking them to check yes on a box on the laws that we create for animals. And we can even look to California. They had Prop 12, which banned cage-free eggs. The vast majority of consumers were buying caged eggs in the grocery store. If we only looked at their consumer behavior, we would think, oh, that's just what they want. But price has an outsized influence on our consumer habits. And as soon as we asked them in the ballot box, I shouldn't say we, this wasn't me, this was other great activists. over 60% of people voted to ban caged eggs. So that's such a huge difference. So I don't think individual advocacy has no place. I still do it. And I think it's a bit overly simplistic to even say that
Yeah.
asking people to go vegan is individual advocacy, because it's a boycott, and boycotts are about people coming together. So it is sort of systemic at that level too. But I have personally, leveled up my skills a little bit to the point where I can more effectively focus on systemic things in a way that I couldn't a few years ago, when the only skills I had were to talk to individuals. So yeah, I think of it as just kind of working on different things now, but I still support both.
Yeah, I really like the way you put that in a nuanced way. And there are not only advantages to both, but there's a lot of overlap and it's not clear. And there's a lot of room for a lot of different types of advocacy. And yours is very successful. So, what are your best tips for using social media effectively? And specifically, how do you grow a YouTube audience? I am asking for a friend. We just got on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. And
awesome.
we need a few more viewers.
Just for context, we've been on the air for more than 15 years.
Since the beginning of time.
Podcast. So we were just like, fine, I guess it's very 2010 of us, but sure. So anyway, yeah, I mean, that's a big question, but like, what are your social media tips? I don't know what direction you want to take that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like over the last few months, my platforms have grown a lot more than any other time. So I think probably the biggest advice I would give anyone is to think very, very long term. Like any YouTuber you come across right now, they've probably been working on videos for years and years before you even come across them. So to you, it may seem like they just appeared overnight, but really they haven't. And even sometimes I'll go to channels and see this really great creator, and I go to their oldest video, and it wasn't that long ago. But then I find out, oh, this is their second or third channel. They've actually been making content for over 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing I would stress is that a lot of times people come to me and they're like, oh, I've been doing YouTube for 6 months and I've only got a few hundred subscribers. My videos aren't getting views. Like, what am I doing wrong? And the biggest thing they're doing wrong is expecting great results after 6 months. It's just not going to happen, especially when you're just starting out. Your videos probably aren't even that good yet. Like when I look at my channel, I was basically just doing the same thing over and over for 3 years. And it was really when I learned more about cinematography and more about editing and storytelling. And even recently, just kind of connecting animal rights with politics in a way I hadn't thought of before. That's been the biggest game changer for my YouTube channel. So really the biggest thing is to just be consistent, stick with it. When you're starting out, try to upload at least every week for at least 2 years generally. And I know that's really hard for people. So also, if you don't have time to commit to a YouTube channel, Instagram and TikTok are where you're probably going to have more success.
Yeah, I would imagine most people listening aren't thinking of starting a YouTube channel. Are you talking about videos because that's what you do? Or do you think that videos are by far the most effective way to get on social media?
No, I mean, I think that's mostly what I do. And then, like, if I look at a lot of orgs, social media, a lot of them have really good images, but they haven't really translated that as well to video. So I think it's an underdeveloped skill for a lot of people who are probably listening. And it's also not that hard to edit videos. And I think people like build it up in their heads as something much harder than it is. But yeah, you can be super effective with images, especially with memes, anything funny like that's going to do well. So probably another piece of advice I would give is just to look at what's doing well and see how you can adapt it. I mean, I think as vegans, we're constantly making things about veganism and animal rights. So we can just use that to our advantage. Like if we see a video that did really well in like the climate or fitness space, like how can we make that about animals, copy the format? Like a lot of my videos that have done really well recently are just trends that other niches are doing, and I just apply it to veganism. Or the other one that does really well is responding to pro meat videos and making fun of them or doing a joke or something like that.
Yeah, making fun of people always works.
Yeah, no, Mariann's pretty good at that.
People are cruel.
So can you just tell our listeners a little bit more about, like, you just started to go there, but a few of the types of videos or maybe a few of your favorite recent ones that they would find on your YouTube?
Yeah, so on my YouTube specifically, there was this guy, the Seaspiracy director, who recently went ex-vegan. and he made this really bad video about it. And there are all these ex-vegan videos on YouTube where vegans respond to their arguments, and it's kind of, to me, it's become boring because it's just so easy to respond to how bad the arguments are. But one thing that was really interesting about this Seaspiracy guy is that a year or so ago, he started putting out like right wing content. And he's loves Jordan Peterson, and people in the Reddit thread about it were picking up on how he got the alt-right brain virus, things like that. So in my video, I analyzed the arguments he used against veganism and then showed how they reflect an alt-right ideology. So it's called the alt-right to ex-vegan pipeline. So I think that's a good example of like taking something that could just be straightforward and applying it in a new, fresh way. So that did really well.
Yeah, and I actually want to talk about that alt-right switch a little bit. But I first want to kind of set the scene a little bit about where we are right now, because I think the alt-right is an interesting, kind of piece of that, and kind of the transition from maybe the backyard chicken people to the alt-right seems like a stream to me. It's just getting
Yeah.
more extreme. But I did want to start kind of with just whether your perception is like this too. And I don't mean to sound negative, but I feel like, 5 years ago when Beyond Meat and Impossible were really hitting and making a lot of money, it just seemed like veganism was going to take over the world. And I mean, I don't think there's any way to put this other than that thing stalled. I mean, I thought we'd be in a different place by now, or at least hoped we would. And so how did we get, I mean, if you agree with me, how did we get from where we were to where we are? And do you think it's just part of the inevitable trajectory of social change to have this kind of backward movement?
Yeah, I think that's a really great and important point. And I'm sure that your perspective is probably more nuanced than mine because I've only been vegan for about 5 years. So I went vegan during the pandemic, and I guess I've just only seen the decline of it. But yeah, I do distinctly remember when I was going vegan thinking like, oh my God, everything's going
Yeah.
to change. Everyone's going to go vegan. It's going to be awesome. And I think there are a lot of different factors that put us where we are now. And probably the biggest one is this shift toward conservative values in the United States. So that is something that I talk about a lot, like the rise of fascism. And a lot of times people hear me say that and they're like, oh, these woke people just call everyone fascist if you disagree with them. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that there are generally many characteristics that precede fascist dictatorships, and we're experiencing quite a lot of them right now. So like
Yeah.
banning books is a really good example of that. And just kind of this rise in traditional values, like you mentioned, the backyard egg people, they used to be kind of the crunchy hippie types, but now they're the trad wives. How did that happen? So I think one of the big reasons that happened is because of the pandemic and vaccines. So hippie types were generally anti-vax for a long time. And then the Dems were very much alienating anyone who wasn't super pro-vax. So they felt like they didn't have anywhere to go. And the right really embraced them. The other thing that I think is a big shift is RFK. So he really was the first person even bringing the food system into politics, which I do think is a great thing because obviously politics affect what we eat so much, and people don't even realize that. They don't know about the subsidies. Like, to them, health is very much a personal choice. So RFK kind of changed that, and the crunchy left types had been saying that for years. They're like, these chemicals in our food, the pesticides, like, we want to protect our children. So I think when he shifted from Democrat to Republican, that really pushed a lot of them toward the right as well. But I think it can be expected as a natural pushback against social change, because we do kind of see that with social movements, is that there's progress and then it stalls, and there's progress and it stalls. But of course, the other thing we have to factor in is just the amount of money and propaganda that the meat industry has.
Yeah.
In 2019, 2020, plant-based meat sales were skyrocketing, and the meat industry knew it was a problem. So they started running all these research marketing tests and found out that the ultra processed unnatural narrative really struck a chord with consumers. So then they spent millions and millions pushing that agenda. So I think that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, no, I think all of those are really important points. I do always like to, this isn't really a social movement, but when you're old enough, it's good to be able to remember things. And I do remember when the internet basically started, and all these people started these startups and new businesses, and they all went out of business, like all of them, except for one, and that was Amazon. And they've done very well, actually.
Very well.
And so it is kind of a natural trajectory. And I think it's important to remember that, though. It must be really interesting to have come into it that point, because I think when any of us go vegan, or for almost everybody, we really kind of think, oh, yeah, I just have to tell everybody. And, they'll go vegan too. Like, it's just a natural impulse. And you had that amplified by the fact that that was actually happening in the real world.
Yeah, yeah, it was a pretty quick realization that that wasn't going to work, though, I will say. After my first few conversations with friends and family members, I realized it pretty quickly.
I don't mean to go on a tangent here, but allow me to go on a tangent here. You said you went vegan during the pandemic. I'm just so curious what happened. Like most people were just like, I'm gonna make bread. And you were like, I'm gonna change the world for animals. Like what was the story there?
Yeah, so I didn't know many vegans. I knew one vegan, one of my best friends from college, and she's also an animal rights advocate now. She has been like her whole life, basically. And she actually posted this photo on Facebook talking about how pandemics are caused by animal farming. 75% of new diseases jump from animals to humans. So, I was at home, and really before going vegan, I was super hedonistic. I was working in the service industry. I just wanted to party with my friends and have a good time. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't allowed to do that because all the bars were closed down. So I didn't really know what to do. So I was on Facebook, and then I'm like, oh my God, is animal farming the reason that like I can't do anything that I want to do right now? So when people are like, oh, we need to appeal to people's self-interest, I do think that a lot of times that can work. That is what opened me up to the idea initially. So I saw that post, and then somehow I ended up on the vegan subreddit, and then encountered Earthling Ed, then, watching Dominion while I was pretending to work from home. Yeah, it just kind of it went from there. And I also really hoped that the public health aspect would be more persuasive to people against animal farming, but apparently it's not very persuasive at all, which is a real bummer because it's super
Hmm.
important.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of super important, really compelling arguments. It's just,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get them to work. Did you want to say something, Jasmine?
Yeah, I guess I want to understand if you have a thick skin because you seem to. And
Oh,
like
yeah, you have to.
I'm such a highly sensitive person, which is, like in my early days as an animal rights activist, I was standing in Union Square in New York leafleting, and if someone like didn't take it, I would like call my therapist. And I just like, how did that happen for you? Like, do you feel like you have a thick skin? And then follow-up question to that, like, where do you put it when people are assholes to you?
Yeah. So I've always had a pretty big interest in Stoic philosophy, which I know now has been kind of co-opted by the manosphere. A lot of people call it Broicism, but I came across it when I was, like early 20s, and it's all about how the only thing you can control is your mindset, your actions, and how you react to what's going on around you. So I think at a young age, I realized that I can't control other people. They're going to do what they want. When I was growing up, I also really hated vegetarians. My grandmother was a vegetarian, and she was really mean. So I think that there was just like a lot of negativity there. So when my friends were vegetarians, I would argue with them about it, like using all the stupid arguments. So I also feel like there's like this element of karma as well. So it's like when people are being mean to me, it feels like I deserve it for being mean to vegetarians in my past. And also, if people think it's okay for billions of animals to be tortured, I probably don't need to take their opinion that seriously. Not to sound super arrogant and vegan superiority, but if we have this fundamental disagreement, Marcus Aurelius says, like, why do you value the opinions of strangers over your own opinions of yourself? And it is insane, right? Like, really what we should value is, am I doing the right actions? Am I making the world a better place? Am I focusing on what I can control? So I think that that has really influenced my thinking. I also think most of the things people say are just stupid in a way that's amusing. Like, I used to get hit all the time with, oh, you're vegan, but you drive a car, so you're killing insects, that type of thing. And then I switched to biking for a lot of reasons. And I posted a video where I'm biking, and now they're like, how many animals died to make your bike? So it's like there's really no way to win with these
No.
people. And I think it's important for us to realize that.
But you
That's
also
very
talk about the
funny.
fact that you have a lot of friends who aren't vegan. I don't know whether that's still the case. It might have been an older video. I don't know. So I think that's something that people find tough. And it's one of the reasons that keeps people from going vegan is losing their relationships, not being able to have authentic relationships. Do you think that you managed to pull that off, have authentic friendships with people who aren't vegan?
I so it definitely took a while. So I think that the pandemic actually helped me with that because I wasn't allowed to see a lot of my
You didn't
friends
have
for a
friends.
while. And then yeah, well, yeah, I mean, then you go back and it's like, oh, I'm vegan. I'm kind of like a different person now. It's different from just like you're all hanging out one day and then the next week you're vegan and there's this expectation for how you're going to behave and then you go against it. I think that that can make it difficult for people. But yeah, I mean, my sister, like when I told her I was vegan, she started crying. It was like, well, you better not tell me what to do. So I definitely experienced a lot of anger toward non-vegan friends and family, probably for the first 3 years or so. And it's something that I definitely started fights. And there are some people I'm not friends with anymore because they were kind of mean to me about it when I first went vegan. And I've still held on to that grudge. So it's more of a filter, I think. Most of the people I'm still friends with now have kind of come around on it a bit. The norms are changing. Like my
Yeah,
husband went vegan a month after I did. So luckily I didn't have to worry
that
about
was very that's
that.
a huge big deal.
Yeah, I mean, with his support, it makes it so much easier. So I think it is important for us to have non-vegan friends because they keep us grounded in how the rest of society feels about this. I also have so many vegan friends, and I think that's great as well. But yeah, I've been kind of struggling with it this week because I might be going to a crawfish boil on Sunday. I don't know if most people are familiar with crawfish boils, but basically they literally boil alive like hundreds of crawfish who are sentient. They're like mini lobsters. They can live up to 7 years in the wild. So, do I want to go to a place where they're doing that? All my friends are going to be there. I can show up. I can bring edamame, which I might do, and throw it in the boil and eat that. I also could maybe pardon one of the crawfish, like rescue one, take him home or something. So, there's always awkward situations and struggles, and it's never really a clear answer on what you should do in each
Yeah.
given situation.
I mean, I think it's interesting how you were focusing on how they would get annoyed with you and not so much like you getting annoyed with them. I mean, I think that's something that I struggle with. I just get angry at people and rather than lose my temper, and it's a friend or a family member, I just kind of withdraw. Somebody once said to me, and I thought this was really pointed and good, that one of the problems particularly in dating somebody who's not vegan is that they don't understand the best thing about you. Like they're
Yeah.
missing this huge thing about you. So that really does interfere with the relationship. But there's this one video you made that I really loved, and you talked about. I mean, this is more just about how social change happens and friendship groups. But you talked about the difference between what happens in an extended friend group when one person goes vegan, basically nothing happens, and when two people go vegan. Do you recall that video? And can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So I recently my friend group has had a bit of a shift because like two people were dating and then they broke up and then she started dating someone new. So it brought in all of his friends into the friend group and there happened to be someone who's been vegan for a while. So it wasn't like someone in my friend group also went vegan. It was my friend group combined. So now there's me and my husband who's kind of on the periphery of this group and then this other guy. And before when I would show up to parties at this friend's house, like she would feed me Oreos and like apologize and ask if I wanted nutritional yeast. And I was like,
On your
okay,
Oreos.
just like in general. I think she
Yeah.
just wanted to show
Yeah.
that she knew what vegans liked. So she's like, oh, I
Yeah.
have this nooch. I'm like, okay, great. I would have rather had like cake or something. But recently I went to a party at her place and there was tofu scramble and she had made pesto and she made it vegan. So like me and the other guy could eat it. And I just thought that was awesome because we were never really, or I was never really considered like that in the past. So I think there's studies on this in the workplace
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
when companies have one woman on the board, like it doesn't make that much of a difference. But when they get up to three women, it makes a huge difference. So there is power in numbers. And once again, why veganism isn't just an individual change, it's a collective boycott. So yeah,
I
that's
love
been
that.
cool to
I have
see.
found that, I mean, the difference between being in a group where there's one other vegan is dramatically different than if you're the only one.
Yeah.
And
People's behavior shifts. It's a really interesting factor about human behavior.
I know it's like kind of cliche at this point to talk about coming out as queer and coming out as vegan, but I will say that when you mentioned that when you came out as vegan, your sister cried, I was like, okay, when I came out as a lesbian, I'm pretty sure some people in my family cried too. I mean, there's so many aligning pieces that I can talk about regarding the LGBTQ movement and how it moved forward so quickly, relatively speaking. Maybe veganism is on that trajectory too. I'm curious if you think that even though we've been kind of in a downturn for the last 5 years, do you think that's going to change? Do you think that is it going to be okay?
Is it going to be okay? Man, that is a tough question. Well, it's interesting about the LGBTQ movement. Did you mean that there's like a back turn, like things are not as good as they were
No,
5 years ago there too?
Well, that's not what I meant. However, yes. I mean, since the Trump administration, yeah, I would say that's true. But before that, I think that it got very normalized. And there was a really long period of time where it wasn't normalized. And that was when my family cried. But anyway, so yeah, I do think that it's taking a step backwards now because of what's going on in our country. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think that this kind of ties in really well to ballot initiatives and what we are doing with Pro Animal Future because our strategy is very similar to the gay rights movement. You know, the gay rights movement focused on equality for a long time, like gay people should be equal to straight people, and didn't really have much success with that for a while. But then when they found the marriage equality stuff, for whatever reason, it kind of resonated more with the public. But that being said, when they put it on the ballot to like pass gay marriage, it failed pretty miserably for a very long time. And then if we look over the period from like, 1990 to 2010, gay marriage was on the ballot in states like all the time. And out of 31 states, there were 30 measures to ban gay marriage that were successful, that passed. So gay marriage was banned in 30 out of 31 states that put it on the ballot. But while that was happening, there was still this huge shift in public opinion because people actually had to think about the issue. They had to vote on it a lot of the time and talk to people about it. And once they really started grappling with the issue, they realized that it's pretty clear that gay people should be allowed to get married, right? So that's when we see this big shift in public perception. And I think it's because they brought that marriage aspect into the political sphere. So that's what we're trying to do with animal rights, because as of right now, it's just a fringe issue that's been kind of framed from this consumer lens. And if we can bring it into the political mainstream, which we're doing with ballot initiatives, we're hoping to see that huge shift in public opinion within the next 10, 20 years. Most Americans already support a ban on factory farming. I think it's around like 52%. And if we can just get factory farming ballot initiatives in all the states that allow them, which is about half of states, then they may fail for a while, but at least people will have to think about it and vote on it and grapple with the ethics of eating animals in a way that they haven't before. So I think we do have reason to be hopeful, but obviously there's a lot of things that could threaten that as well. So I don't know.
I
There's
should
also
mention too that-
technology.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention too that Aiden Kankyoku was on the podcast. I forget what episode it was, but if people want to learn more about that, though it was a while ago, and I mean, Pro Animal Futures had some setbacks. The big ballot initiative, which I think was probably the main thing he was talking about when he was on the podcast, was the lamb slaughterhouse. Well, it was the slaughterhouse ban in Denver, but the only slaughterhouse in Denver was the lamb slaughterhouse, I believe. Superior Farms, was that the name of that place? Yeah.
Yeah, Superior Farms.
And there have been ballot initiatives in the past. I mean, I'm a huge fan of ballot initiatives. So they have been in the past, basically for welfare measures. So there has been some success in this area. What do you think the next step is? I mean, having had a setback with the slaughterhouse one, which I think was different from ones in the past because for the first time, the industry seriously fought back, really fought back. And there were some, there were
Hmm.
some issues maybe with the choice because very particular local issues. But so what are the next steps if we're going to shift from individual advocacy to political advocacy? How do you create a ballot initiative where people vote against factory farming, which they probably would, because everybody thinks that the meat they eat isn't from factory farms. So they would have no problem voting against factory farms because they're so naive about what's really
Hmm.
happening. Anyway, that was a really long, extended question. But I mean, since you brought up Primal Future, I'd love to know what you're thinking.
Yeah. So first thing is, I don't know if I would call the slaughterhouse ban a setback because we came across this survey that said that 47% of Americans wanted to ban slaughterhouses, which sounds absolutely insane, right? So we wanted to test that in the real world, and we found that it was actually 36% of people in Denver who wanted to ban slaughterhouses, which is still pretty good. If you think that only 5% of those people are vegan or vegetarian, that means a huge percentage of meat eaters voted to ban slaughterhouses. So I think that's pretty promising. So we got a lot of good feedback on that. We learned a lot about running a campaign. We learned that probably slaughterhouse bans are a little too bold for right now. Then there were also a couple factory farm measures, like the one in Berkeley, which did pass because there was an opposition, and the one in Sonoma County, which was very, very crushing defeat. They only got 15% because the industry did put in a lot of opposition. So in Denver, they spent about $2.5 million against our campaign. Same thing in Sonoma. So what we learned essentially is that when the meat industry fights back with their money, that we are likely to lose. So what does that mean? That means we have to become a lot better at fundraising. That means we have to learn more about lobbying, more about ads, more strategic policies, and probably just a blanket factory farm ban isn't going to work because there's too many issues with the EPA's definition of factory farms. So could we create a different definition of factory farm that may require outdoor access or something like that, which we're working on? That could change the popularity of that election. So in the meantime, Pro Animal Future, since we did lose our measures, now we want to focus on winning so we can build momentum. And that's why we're focusing on foie gras. So we just launched our campaign in Denver to ban force-fed products. We're launching one in DC in January, which I think is going to be great because it's the national capital. So it's got a bit more influence. And then we're looking at some sort of pasture access policy outside Portland starting next summer. So that is the future for now. But ideally, we will have factory farm bans of some sort on the ballot in 10
Mhm.
states by 2032.
I'm not asking you to criticize what other people have done. I'm just asking for your perspective, like on, because there have been those ballot initiatives that have banned gestation, well, essentially banned, I mean, used wording that essentially banned gestation crates and battery cages. And do you think that was a first step and we should be going further than that now? Or, I mean, they've also run into a lot of legal problems. I'm just interested in your perspective on them.
Yeah, so Prop 12 would be a great example of that. In California,
Yeah.
they banned gestation crates and then the caged egg production, and it passed by over 60%. And the Port Council has been fighting against it so hard. They took it to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says we should uphold the law now. They're working on the EATS Act, which would basically nullify any sort of ballot initiatives or laws against factory farms, which that would be very bad. So we're trying to fight against that. But I think stuff like that is great. I think anything that helps animals and gets voters thinking about it, that we should do more of them. The issue is that it takes a lot of money,
Yeah.
especially at a state level, and it takes a lot of people power if you're not going to spend a lot of money. So, yeah, that does make me think that we should use the money for the boldest initiatives that we can, since it's so resource intensive.
I'm curious about something. You mentioned technology a few minutes back, and obviously, this is kind of the hot topic everywhere. And in many ways, we have no idea what we're getting into. When it comes to technology and animal rights activism, or even the opposite of that, animal oppression, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think technology has to offer us, and where do you think its drawbacks will be?
Yeah, I'm definitely, if you're talking about AI, I'm pretty terrified of anything with that, especially these humanoid robots that I've been
Mm.
seeing, and the idea of animals in slaughterhouses being slaughtered by robots. Like maybe it's better that humans don't have to deal with the PTSD and depression, but it's not going to be better for the animals. So that's definitely a huge concern of mine. I think where technology could be good, and I know people talk about this a lot, is like the lab grown meat, cell cultured meat, precision fermentation. Like there's already the whey protein that you can make without animals. I think those things are awesome because I do think that probably 99.999% of people could easily go vegan or go vegan without any sort of health issues, but there probably are some sort of conditions where people just can't digest all the fiber in plants or maybe have too many allergies. So I think that these sort of products will really fill that gap and make it accessible to everyone. Like they're going to be able to be priced at a lower cost than animal meat eventually, because slaughtering animals is always gonna, you're always gonna have to feed them. You're always gonna have to give them water. They're always gonna take up a lot of land. It's just inherently less efficient than if we did the precision fermentation route. So I think that if that stuff is really coming out and tasting good at the same time as we're running these pro animal ballot measures, that could be a really powerful combination. So there's definitely pros and cons.
You just mentioned there might be a case where someone can't digest the fiber, et cetera, et cetera. I am curious if you've heard any arguments in your sort of MOS, man on the street interviews that aren't actually dishonest, that you think make a legitimate point, even if they're wrong, since I think there is a workaround to every argument around, why someone would continue to eat animals. But do you ever hear anything from animal eaters that you're like, huh?
Or is it all like about, canine teeth or something?
Yeah, I mean, any arguments I've heard on the street, like even if they use the sort of health argument aspects, like they're not the ones who can't go vegan due to health. They're like using someone else's health
That's
concerns.
really true. Yeah.
Or like maybe they're like, oh, well, what about indigenous people? Like it's never actually coming from indigenous people. They're just like co-opting them for their own benefit. I don't think there is any valid argument against veganism, at least not one that I've come across, especially because included within the vegan definition is as far as practicable and possible, to exclude animal exploitation. So like if you really did have one of those conditions, as long as you minimized the amount of animal products you're consuming, then that would still fit the definition of veganism. So yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of really crazy arguments against veganism, and sometimes you'll hear them and you'll just be like, what the, like someone was like,
what? Yeah, what?
yeah, like, well, I should eat burgers because what if that cow is a reincarnated serial killer? And
Oh
I
my
can't,
God.
I can't disprove it, right? Like, because they can't prove it. So you're just kind of in this weird place where, like, I don't know what to say. He wasn't like Hindu or Buddhist or anything. It's just some white American saying that. So there's a lot of crazy ones like that. And the Seaspiracy guy who went ex-vegan was basically complaining that vegan marshmallows were too expensive. And if you buy the non-vegan marshmallows and then donate a few dollars to an animal sanctuary, then you're doing more good for animals than buying vegan marshmallows. So there's all
Oh
these
my
kinds of
God.
ridiculous justifications people come up with, but none of them really pass the sniff test. I don't know. Has anyone ever heard a great argument against veganism? Otherwise, we might not be vegan. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, no, I've never heard a good argument.
There could be, like as you said, practicable and possible. Like obviously, you can get into the desert island argument, which I'm sure you have been dragged into more than once, because who hasn't? But other than that, which, whether you're going to die if you don't eat an animal, that's about the only, if you can think of that situation. And that is usually the situation that they want to talk about. You're about to die of starvation. Starts off with that. But another thing that you did a video about recently, which I really want to hear about, is you took this Masters of Beef Advocacy program. Tell people like what that was like. And what is it like being amongst those people? I just get so caught up in hating them, which is not good. It's not good to hate people, but wow, it's hard not to.
Yeah, well, luckily it was just an online course, so I didn't have to go to a classroom and be around beef advocacy people. But yeah, it's crazy. I first came across the Masters of Beef Advocacy course, I think on Instagram, and it's promoted as this way to get people to learn about beef and why it's good for the environment and it's good for health, and to create an army of like pro beef advocates. And when I heard about it, I was also coming across all this carnivore content online with these people who are eating raw meat and talking about how great it
Right,
is
right,
and
yeah.
all the like regenerative farming and beef is great for the climate, things like that. So I was just thinking, what do they teach in this course? How are they letting people in? So I applied for it, and I actually used my real name just to see if they would like do any sort of vetting, and they didn't. So they let me into their online course, and it was the worst online course I've ever taken, and I've taken quite a lot of them. It was just really boring misinformation. It starts out with them complaining about veganuary and meatless Monday. And of course, beef has all the nutrients you need, and it's not really a concern about the climate. Basically, the main thing they taught us was if you're talking to someone about beef and they have reservations about eating it, you should use the two C's, which is that you care and you are capable. So if someone's worried about beef's impact on the climate, you say, we care about the climate too, and we're capable of making the beef industry more efficient. And then the entire course was just like them repeating the two C's over and over. And it's over 5 hours long,
Wow.
right? So I go through the course, I get my little certificate, and I was actually in Denver at the time. And the National Cattlemen's Beef Association headquarters is in Denver. So I call them and I'm like, hey, like, can I come by? I want to interview someone about this course. I just finished it. They're like, oh no, please don't come by. I go anyway. Get to this building and like no one is there. So they call it the command center, and they say that they have all these supercomputers and staff working 24/7 to search the internet for more than 200 beef related topics so they can respond to people arguing about beef with their pro meat talking points. And this is a checkoff program. So basically, all the ranchers in the US have to give money to the beef checkoff. So their money is just like completely being wasted, because when I went to the command center, no one was there. There was no one scouring the internet. They didn't have any computers. They were like, "Oh, it's Friday. Everyone's traveling." Yeah, I think they just take all that money from ranchers and then go travel around and spend a lot of money, and it's like millions every year. So if I were a rancher, I'd be pretty pissed off.
Well, a
But
lot of them are pretty pissed off. There's a lot of controversy
yeah,
amongst them about paying for that. And it's nice to know that they're scamming each other
yeah,
with the rest of the world. But it just drives me, I pay a lot of attention to meat industry. I read meat industry stuff every week and do another podcast about that. And so I really feel embedded in it. And it just astounds me at how bad they are. And you're
yeah,
kind of renewing that. And they're so successful. I guess it's just the ability they have to throw so much money at
yeah.
everything, but they're not competent and their arguments aren't good. And well, of course, they don't have good arguments to come up with, but still, they don't do them well. It just always astounds me.
It's pretty crazy. If the status quo weren't on their side, they wouldn't have a chance. But then the other part of that video is that when I went to the command center, they started getting suspicious of me. And then when I got home, I realized they had kicked me out of the course and out of their exclusive Facebook group, which sucked because I hadn't actually recorded any of the course for my video on it. So I had to go through the course again under a fake name so I can actually get the footage for it. So I sat through like over 10 hours of beef industry propaganda. And yeah,
Wow.
it's really appalling how bad it is.
Yeah. Ugh, hats off to you. I hope you treated yourself to something real good that night. I know that we have to start to wrap up soon and move to our bonus content, but I am curious about, to completely generalize, what's going on with Gen Z and animals. Like, is it a flexitarian thing, or can you shed some light for us old people?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not Gen Z by any means, but I just did a video on this. So when I first went vegan, I was seeing all these articles about how Gen Z is going to bring the vegan revolution and how younger people are going plant-based at a much higher rate. And as veganism has declined, it seems like that's declined as well. As of right now, millennials are more likely to be vegan than Gen Z, who have the
Mm.
same rates of veganism as boomers. So it's not really growing that much. But what is interesting is that they do care more about health. And it seems like they actually are looking at some of the scientific evidence and not just propaganda, although they look at a lot of propaganda as well. So basically, anyone who knows anything about nutrition science recognizes that a very plant forward diet that basically doesn't have red meats and minimizes other meat is just going to be healthier. So Gen Z is a lot more open to plant-based eating in general. There's the plant-based university stuff or plant-based by default. So whereas people,
Mhm.
my age and older, a lot of times don't even think of something as a meal unless there's a dead animal on the plate. Gen Z really just sees plant-based options as equal to animal-based options when they're thinking about their diet, but they also care more about convenience. And, obviously being vegan is usually not as convenient as eating animals. So that's kind of a point against it. But they're definitely more open to the idea of it. And I feel like it's good because if we normalize meals that are plant-based, then people are a lot more open to hearing about animal rights. But Gen Z is also more wary of labels, and that's where we can kind of run into trouble because you do have to
Yeah.
take on the vegan label as much as I wish we didn't. I wish it were just the default. And they don't like putting themselves into a box like that and value flexibility a bit higher than other
Mm.
generations.
They're also at the age too, which I mean, I think that we were talking about the social cost of being vegan, and I really think that particularly the dating, sex, mating aspect of that is really powerful. I mean, it's hard enough to meet somebody like if you eat the same things, but it really gets in your way to try to, hook up with people while you're vegan. And for Gen Z, I mean, they're at that age where they're really starting the effort of finding somebody and or a variety of people. And I think it's a particularly difficult thing. And it's just so difficult when you're in it for the animals that it's such a black or white thing. Like, it doesn't work for me philosophically to be a flexitarian because it's better to kill fewer animals than a lot of animals, but
Yeah.
it's still we're not there. We haven't gotten to the place where we need to be because it's not just what you eat, it's how you think about
Yeah.
animals. I mean, that's a much bigger issue and about all animals, and eating has a lot to do with that. So I do think that that's a really big piece. But almost everything we've talked about, I think, comes to the conclusion that the more vegans there are, the more vegans there will be. Do you think that's true? It's just, I mean, I guess it's the old school tipping point philosophy, but I do think there's something to it. The social cost is harder for some people than for other people.
Yeah, I mean, most people eat meat because most people eat meat. And yeah, people don't want to be the only one doing something different. And Gen Z is having enough trouble dating as it is. I mean, it's a huge mess with that. And I did see this study that women rate men as less attractive if they're vegan.
That's
So that's
nice. That's really
unfortunate.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Wow.
definitely a real struggle. And I feel like they just don't have a huge sense of autonomy in the world, and there's not really a desire to make things better. There's a lot of doomerism. And I get it. I mean, it does seem like things are falling apart and the economy's bad and they're not able to get jobs and AI is taking all the jobs. Like I can see why adding going vegan to that would just not be something that a lot of people want to pursue, which is why the animal rights message is so important because it really does connect people and give them that internal drive to change.
Yeah, and it gives meaning to your life. Like, I think of it so often of my great nieces and nephews and what they're facing and how confusing the world is. And it's a really tough time to grow up and to find meaning. And I think
Mhm.
that when you realize what's happening to animals and you do something about it, it really does lend meaning to your life. So I think it would actually be a huge plus for people. But of course, that's me saying that. But I
Mhm.
get it. They've had a tough upbringing because of the pandemic. They had this crazy thing happen to them at this crucial moment. And now look at what they're
Yeah.
facing. Oh my God. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
I love that you were talking about karma before, Natalie, and you reminded me that I used to, when I was vegetarian before I was vegan, I used to say I'm a vegetarian, but not the mean kind. And I meant,
You meant
vegan.
vegan.
I meant vegan. And
Vegan.
then,
Yeah.
I made my life and my career about being the mean kind, basically. So, what's next for you, Natalie, with both your personal advocacy and your professional advocacy? What are you looking forward to?
Man, looking forward to my next YouTube video. I'm pretty excited about. It's going to be about surviving on vegan fast food for a week. So I'm going to see how
Yum.
that goes. Yeah, right. I've been enjoying the sort of challenge-based videos, and then the foie gras campaigns. So a lot of stuff with that. And yeah, basically my goal for YouTube for the last year has been to broaden my audience to reach more non-vegans, and it seems to be working. So that's great. And then Instagram, hoping that that'll grow as well. But yeah, I try to take things day by day and just, focus on how I can make my content a little better today than yesterday. So it's generally the goal. It's
Well,
weird to be in this position now because when I started, I just never known that YouTube would change my life. So that's why I especially encourage people on social media is that you meet people and it connects you with people and you build a lot of skills like speaking and editing, and it's just really valuable stuff.
it's really incredible. Just to go back to what I started with at the beginning of this chat, like nobody does this well except you. I mean, really,
That's
like
not
the fact
true.
that you're okay, but what I mean is there are like, all right, maybe I'm exaggerating slightly. That's the name of my next book. Maybe I'm exaggerating slightly. But I really do think it is a near impossible feat to be talking about animals and centering animals in your messaging while getting like, mainstream clicks. Like that is hard. Our hen house is like geared to be speaking to animal people, right? And so like our measure of success or whatever is very, very different because we're trying to embolden our listeners and viewers to go out and change the world for animals in their communities. But you're really doing something that is unbelievably difficult. And I mean, at least that's how I see it. It sounds like you don't see it that way, but I don't know,
No, I
Natalie.
appreciate it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of value in empowering activists. And I probably wouldn't be doing what I am now without, other activists doing stuff like that. So
Well,
don't sell yourself short.
thank you. I have a lot of confidence in what I do and what I bring to the world, but I could never do that. You know what I mean? So we all do need to do what we're good at. And that's sort of
Yeah.
the basis of our hen house, I think, is like take what you're good at and use it to change the world for animals. You're certainly doing that, Natalie. So how can people find out more about your work and support your efforts?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. On Instagram, I am at Natty Fulton, NATTIE FULTON. YouTube, just Natalie Fulton. If you want to email me, natalie@proanimal.org. And if you're into political advocacy or the idea of that, then definitely donate to Pro Animal Future.
Amazing. So that is it for our hen house. We had our flock here for Flock Friday. So if you want to join the flock, make sure you go to ourhenhouse.org/support so that you could be invited to these live interviews. Our flock is going to get to chat with Natalie in just a moment, and we'd love to have you there if you're listening to this, if you're watching this. Make sure you subscribe to our hen house on your favorite podcatcher and or on YouTube. Thank you so much for changing the world for animals, and we'll talk to you next time.